Ever look at your coffee receipt lately and kind of do a double take? You know, that feeling of, wait, when did my morning cold brew start costing this much? Well, you are definitely not imagining it. Today, we're going to break down exactly what's going on. Okay, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. As of October 2025, U.S. retail coffee prices have skyrocketed by 21% in just a single year. Yeah, 21%. That's a huge jump, and it's hitting everyone, whether you're buying beans at the grocery store or grabbing a cup from your local spot. And look, this isn't just some abstract number. Mark Wormuth, who owns Swings Coffee Roasters, put it about as bluntly as you can. Consumers are footing the bill for it. Plain and simple. The costs are being passed down the line, and we're the ones at the end of it. So what in the world is behind this massive price hike? Well, it's not just one single thing. It's more like a perfect storm. Two completely different forces that slammed into each other at the exact same time. And the result is a more expensive cup of coffee. On one side, you've got a man-made issue, new government import tariffs. And on the other side, you have Mother Nature, a really, really severe drought in Brazil. Let's dig into how this combination created the situation we're in now. First, let's talk about the weather. You gotta remember, Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer. They're the biggest player on the field. So when they get hit with a bad drought, the entire global supply chain feels it. And that's exactly what happened. The supply of coffee beans got squeezed so tight that U.S. stockpiles fell to their lowest level since 2020. But the drought, that's only half the story. At the very same time that nature was putting a strain on the supply, a new man-made policy was about to make everything a whole lot more expensive. And that was a new and pretty controversial coffee tariff. So in July of 2025, the Trump administration rolled out these tariffs, hitting some of the biggest coffee-producing nations pretty hard. Brazil got slapped with a massive 50% tariff. Vietnam got hit with 20%, and both Colombia and Ethiopia got a 10% tariff. One interesting exception was Mexico, which was left exempt. So you might be hearing that word tariff and thinking, what exactly is that? Well, it's actually pretty simple. A tariff is just a tax that a government puts on goods being imported from another country. In this case, it's a new tax on coffee beans arriving in the U.S. Now, the stated goal here was to encourage fairer trade practices. But critics, including groups like the National Coffee Association, pointed out something really unique about coffee. The United States imports over 99% of it. We don't really have a domestic coffee growing industry to protect. So the practical result is that these new costs, this tax, gets passed directly from the importer to the roaster, and then, yep, straight to us. Okay, so how does a tax at the border actually find its way into the price of your morning latte? Let's follow the money and trace the journey of a coffee bean from the shipping port all the way to your cup. It all starts at the farm, right? Then it gets exported. But it's right at that next step, the import stage, that the tariff gets applied. Bam! A huge new cost is added right there at the dock. And from that point on, that extra cost just gets carried along to the roaster and finally to the cafe, where it's baked into the final price. The impact of this was immediate. And frankly, it was dramatic. After that 50% tariff hit Brazilian coffee, imports from Brazil just fell off a cliff. We're talking about a 75% drop in just 1 month, compared to the year before. Importers basically had to scramble to find new coffee, and fast. This sudden scramble created a ton of volatility in the market. As all these buyers were rushing to find new sources, the global price benchmark for Arabica coffee futures, that's basically the price traders agree to pay for coffee down the road, it climbed by nearly 40%. And that meant that even coffee from countries that weren't directly hit by the tariff suddenly got more expensive too. And you know, while the big corporate chains might have the leverage to negotiate better deals, it's the small, independent roasters who are really feeling the squeeze. As Joel Finkelstein of Qualia Coffee put it, every small business is constantly assessing whether it makes sense to stay open. I mean, for a lot of them, this is an existential threat. And all of this translates directly to the prices you see on the menu board. In a place like Washington, D.C., for instance, the average price for a regular hot coffee has now climbed to $4.21. A cold brew is going to set you back $5.35. These aren't just abstract numbers anymore. This is the new reality for coffee drinkers. Wow, this kind of sticker shock has definitely not gone unnoticed. In fact, the price hikes got so significant that they prompted a pretty rare thing to happen in Washington. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle actually decided to step in. So, in response to all this, a bipartisan bill was introduced in Congress, and it's called the No Coffee Tax Act. The name says it all. The goal is super simple: reverse these new tariffs on coffee imports and hopefully give everyone some relief. And what makes this bill so noteworthy is that it has support from both parties. It was co-sponsored by Republican Congressman Don Bacon and Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna. It's a really rare moment of political unity, and it's all driven by a shared concern over rising costs for everyday people. So let's bring all this back to where we started, your morning cup of joe. What this whole situation really shows is how policy decisions made hundreds or thousands of miles away can end up having a direct impact on your daily routine. So, when it all comes down to it, what does this all really mean for your morning cup? Ultimately, that coffee you're holding is a lot more than just a drink. It's become a daily reminder of how these enormous global forces, everything from international trade policy to a drought halfway around the world, can brew together and show up in the most routine parts of our everyday lives.